All right, guys, welcome. We're going to start Get Lit with Lynn. Are you all lit? Are you ready? Number 2, sorry about missing 2 weeks ago. I did not have COVID, but I was not feeling so great. So let's start. I don't have a ton of publishing news for you this week. The New York Times had an article today about a new app that's in development called Tertulia. Did you see that article? That is this never-ending quest to come up with something digital and electronic that will replicate what we do here in the bookstore, which is, talk to you and find out what you like and recommend books. So they're trying to find like online ways to do that kind of engagement and that kind of recommendation, because everybody's critical of Amazon and their algorithms. So yet again, someone's launching something that's, going to be the big new thing. So we'll hold our breath and see what happens. It's called Tertulia, T-E-R. Did you guys can't hear what they said, but John just said it's not going to replace me. Wasn't that nice of him?
True.
Invited to come all the time. All right, so that was one thing. So now I'm going to start with my favorite question, which is read any good books lately. It's a little hard to engage the virtual with the regular, so I'll just do the translating. But has anybody read anything recently they want to mention? No. Yeah, did you bring it with you? Do you want to grab it? Yeah. Anybody else want to recommend anything that they've read? Your book group reads a classic? Oh, you're like me, I forget. What did I read yesterday?
Yeah, right.
Oh, you read Dickens, Hard Time. Okay. All right. That's a good summer read. Oh. Has anyone read Dickens recently? Yeah. I read Great Expectations not all that long ago. It's good to talk about. He was a chronicler of social ills.
Yes, and he was a very nice person. According to the
Thank you.
Times article that I had read, but it ended with his saying it was a
Charles Dickens was not a nice person. Okay. All right. Well, this is a book that John has recommended, The Boy Who Drew Auschwitz, which is a really, I haven't read it, but it's just a powerful book with, I looked through it, with drawings. Ellen, do you know this book?
Not at all, no.
You might want to check it out. Ellen is a former Jewish librarian, a retired Jewish librarian. Right. Yeah, the drawings are, you just look at them and your heart crumples up, and I think this is a really beautiful new book. Yeah, so thank you for bringing it to my attention. Well, I'll talk about a little bit about what I've been reading. I've been mixing my reading up a little because I've been trying to read more like beach reads in between more heavy duty reads. So I guess I'll start with the beach reads. Now, last time I talked about Birds of California, which is just a really fun romance. And my 2 beach read recommendations for tonight are not new books, but they are these 2 books. And these are my 2 rock and roll books. And they're both really written, really well written, really good stories. So Daisy Jones, Taylor Jenkins Reid is, do you guys know about Book Talk on TikTok? And any of the authors who kind of get picked up, Key knows all about that, are hugely popular. Madeline Miller, who's an amazing author, but she's popular on TikTok, and she wrote Circe and the Song of Achilles, which I highly recommend. She sells like 1,500 copies a week. And a lot of that is because of the popularity on TikTok. And Taylor Jenkins Reid has a book called The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. That's very popular. This is the one of hers that I read. It's sort of a faux oral history of a rock band, allegedly based on Stevie Nicks, the main character, but it's just told from all these different points of view, and it's so well told. It's got a great little twist at the end, and I really like this. So when I go for light reading, I want it to be well written, you know, and not, I've talked with a lot of people this week about this idea of a plot being obvious, right? Like for me, I don't want to know. I don't want it to be so easy to figure out where the story's going, right?
Right.
I want to be surprised. And even this book, where it really pretty much is a boy meets girl, girl gets boy gets girl, boy loses girl, etc. Kind of like, you know where it's going. There was some stuff thrown in that you didn't necessarily see coming, and you need that, right? And so this is really well written. And this, Mary Jane, is another kind of rock and roll novel about a 14-year-old girl, kind of coming of age story. And it's by Jessica Anya Blau. And she, have you read it? She is being raised in a kind of a conservative family, but she gets a babysitting job for the summer for a family that's very different than her family. And she spends a lot of time with this family. And part of it is that the husband is a psychologist, and he is treating a rock star, and decides that the best treatment is for the rock star and his wife to come live with him. So this girl is sort of in this household with the rock star and his wife, who are allegedly modeled on Greg Allman and Cher. Remember, they were married. So did you remember that? So right. So anyway, and she's 14 in 1974. So it's kind of my era, and it's a good story, and I liked it. Now, since we met last, I actually read The Candy House by Jennifer Egan. And this is the one that's a sort of companion / sequel to her book, A Visit from the Goon Squad, which was a Pulitzer Prize winner. Who's read that?
Mm-mm.
This is the author of the Pulitzer Prize.
A Visit from the Goon Squad. And so one of the aspects of Goon Squad and of this book is a plot that's very chopped up in time. And so when you go from chapter to chapter, you don't know where you're going. You could be in a different time. You're on a different character's point of view. Some readers are very bothered by that. I love it. So, for example, in the opening chapter, this guy who's one of the main characters who invents, she's also very futuristic. Like, she didn't date Steve Jobs for nothing. And she understands technology. And she created this guy who created this website where you can download your consciousness, and then you can share other people's consciousness. So instead of watching TV at night, you can just plug in and watch what other people are thinking. And you know, it's futuristic, but it's not that hard to think like, that could exist 5 years from now. So the guy who invents it is in the first chapter, and he goes to a meeting at somebody's house. And at the meeting, he wanders out into the hallway, and he sees the host's got some photographs on his bookshelf of some little kids. And he's like, oh, those must be his sons. And then the next chapter is from the point of view of one of those sons. So for me, it was kind of a game, like hunting for Easter eggs, like, ooh, where's the clue in this chapter about what the next chapter is going to be?
Was it confusing?
For some people, it was confusing, and that's why some people have a problem with it, because, so this is another, I kind of like to work at my reading. I don't want things just fed to me. If they're just telling me a story, I'm not interested. I want something creative to be happening. So I think that's why, Lisa, that people get frustrated, because I've mentioned this before to some of you, but the literary critic Harold Bloom talked about great fiction being unsettling. It's very unsettling. You don't know where you are. You don't have your feet solidly on the ground. Just when you think you've gotten to know one character and their setting, you're somewhere else and you don't know where you are. So I don't know. I mean, you know how you feel about that, if that bothers you or you like that. I think it's creative and interesting.
Non-linear.
You like nonlinear.
I do.
Yeah.
And it's a
Well, Well, so do you have to read the Goon Squad was the question, and you don't have to, but I would, because a lot of the characters there are referred to in this. So I reread Goon Squad before I read this, and I was glad I did, because there was a lot of references. Yeah, they're similar stylistically. The Goon Squad is kind of famous because it has, for one thing, it has one chapter written entirely in PowerPoint. It is interesting. It is. It's creative. It's innovative. I admire that. And timely, exactly. So another book that I just read that Key's gonna read soon is a new novel called Remarkably Bright Creatures. Okay. Now, what do you see on the cover? So it's an octopus. This is a story of, it's a story of some people who are lost and then they're found. But they're found with the help of Marcellus the octopus.
I heard about this one.
Have you? And Marcellus has chapters from his point of view in his voice.
This was one of the
Oh, Jenna.
Jenna, yeah.
Yes, this is a Read with Jenna book. It's charming. It's really good. And it reminded me, and then I saw that the author thanks in her acknowledgments Cy Montgomery, who wrote this book, The Soul of an Octopus. So this is the nonfiction side of the story. And this is a book that was recommended to me. I don't think I would have reached out for it on my own. And Cy Montgomery is a naturalist who spent a year or so working at the Boston Aquarium and getting to know the octopuses. And, you know, and they are octopuses because it's Greek. They're not octopi. That was the first thing she told us. And communicating with them because they're incredibly intelligent. They can fit through teeny tiny spaces. So this octopus in this book would come out of his tank at night and wander around the aquarium. And they thought they had him closed in, but he found a space big enough to fit out. And so these two books, they make a great partnership. So if you're sitting there thinking, I need some octopus books, these are the ones for you. With the camouflage. Yeah, there's some, someone told me there's a TV show recently about octopuses. Yeah. Really? She's saying there's a video about a guy who went to pay daily visits to an octopus. Oh, they camouflage themselves with color. So if you look up videos online, you'll see these videos where you think you're looking at a plant and then all of a sudden, whoosh, it's really cool. Another book that I read recently, another nonfiction, is The Barbizon, the hotel that set women free. Do you guys know about the Barbizon Hotel?
Yes.
Yep, we talked about this. So the Barbizon was opened in the 1920s, women only, single room occupancy. So if a young woman was going to go to New York to try to make her career, her parents wanted her to stay at the Barbizon because there was no men allowed and there were curfews and they felt like they were safe. And she kind of looks at women's history and at feminism through the lens of this hotel. So, for example, Mademoiselle magazine had a program of guest editors and they would bring in, hi Jane.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
No problem. They would bring in 20 college students every summer who were chosen from around the country to work at Mademoiselle magazine, which was then really, known to be pretty cutting edge. And they would house these guest editors at the Barbizon. So some of them became quite famous. One of the most famous ones was Sylvia Plath and Joan Didion and Ally McGraw. Also Grace Kelly lived at the Barbizon. But then there are also a lot of, regular women whose history she learns. And some of them became fashion models. So a lot of it's about, no, it's nonfiction. So she's going decade by decade through the history of the hotel and the women who lived there. It's just, to me, it's a really cool way of learning some history. And I liked it very, very much. And about working women, sort of the genesis of working women going out to find their careers. A lot of them, the Catherine Gibbs Secretary School, they had a floor in the Barbizon for their students, right? So you could be a secretary, you could be a model, you could be an actress, or you could get married. A lot of options. Grace Kelly tried to model. She went to the Ford agency and tried to get taken on, and Eileen Ford turned her down. Later said it was the biggest mistake of her career. She was plump. She was plump at that point. And she wore glasses. Yes. So this is what I just started reading. I mentioned it last time, Trust by Hernan Diaz, which is a sort of story in 4 parts of a wealthy, industrial captains, wealthy. So that's interesting. A book that we talked about, maybe we didn't talk about here, but we've talked about the School for Good Mothers. You guys know about this book? This takes place, a lot of it is in Philadelphia. The author lived in Philadelphia while she wrote it, Jessamine Chan. And this is the story of a mother who is caught mistreating her child. Well, she leaves him alone at home for too long, and the neighbors tell on her, and social services catches her. And so it's a sort of dystopian, Margaret Atwoodian. They send her to this place called the School for Good Mothers, where she's going to be retrained to be a proper mother with the help of some sort of electronic children. And at the end of a year living there, they will determine if she gets her child back or not. So it's disturbing. It's not perfect, but it's well written, right? You read it?
Yep, put me in a reading slump.
Oh,
Yeah.
Key was so traumatized by it that she stopped reading for a little while. Yeah, that didn't happen to me. But the reason I'm bringing it up now is because this new book just came out, The Foundling by Anne Leary. And this is about, this is based on history for a woman who gets a secretarial job at a Pennsylvania institution called the Nettleton State Village for Feeble-Minded Women of Childbearing Age. So the history behind it, as far as I've heard, is that Margaret Sanger, who was a big activist for reproductive rights, also believed that certain women should not be allowed to give birth, and they should be sent away during their childbearing years so that they wouldn't have children. What? It's about eugenics. Yep. And this is one of the places where they were sent. This is 1927. So I haven't read it yet, but if you want to, read really depressing. So we have different categories. We have octopuses and we have frightening books about mothering. Right? Take your pick. Personally, I recommend the octopuses. Or you could read books about books, which never gets old, right? So the new one of those to recommend today is a Barnes & Noble pick of the month, which, as you can see, is part of our buy one, get one 50% off special, The Messy Lives of Book People. About a woman working as a maid who's dreaming of becoming an author. We love those dreaming of becoming an author books, don't we? They never get old. So I'm recommending that one. I have a ton more of those I could recommend, but a few I just brought. The Personal Librarian. This just came out in paperback, right? Did you read it, Ellen? Do you like it?
On mute. Yes, very much.
Okay. Also,
There's a lot in there.
Fiction. There's a lot in here of two women. One she's passing, right? So this is another passing, and she's working at the JP Morgan Library, and so historical fiction, well done. And then my favorite book about this, which is The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry.
Love that one too.
Yeah, if you haven't read this is the best one.
He's the one who owns a bookshop on Cape Cod, and they leave the baby there, and that's enough.
What is that called?
The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. Zevin. She has a new book that's just about to come out that's getting a lot of buzz, that's more futuristic and different. I don't think it's about mothers.
And
But,
this one, they recommend reading at the end of each
Yeah.
chapter.
Every chapter is based on a different, right? Like here, The Celebrated
Yeah.
Jumping Frog of Calaveras County by Mark Twain, right?
Right.
There's a chapter based on it. This is a book that definitely deserves the term heartwarming, right? This is a beautiful book. Can you pass that down to Sheila? Okay, so let's see. Really quickly, let's run through a couple more things that are brand new. This, if you want to read history, here's a new history book, The First Populist, The Defiant Life of Andrew Jackson. Getting some good buzz. If you want some Hollywood books, although you all don't strike me as the Hollywood book types, but Colton Hayes, who was like Teen Wolf and Arrow. Oh, come on, you know you watched that show. No, I'm kidding. A Hollywood memoir. What? I know. You're all looking at me like, who? All right, how about Selma Blair? We know who she is, all right?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has a memoir about, seriously, like, if the things you heard about her life weren't bad enough,
Well, she has MS.
she has MS,
Yeah.
but now she's talking about how she was sexually abused and how she started drinking when she was 7 years old.
Ugh.
Lighthearted.
Lighthearted,
Yeah.
exactly. Lighthearted and heartwarming. Legally Blonde, Cruel Intentions. She's really beautiful. I mean, she's stunning. Yeah. This is selling really well.
I love the cover.
It's a beautiful cover. Do you think it's selling because the cover's so pretty? This is
Yeah.
called The Other Mother. This is about a boy who grows up with his mother but without a father and is always curious to find his father who's not part of his life. And it turns out, and the father is a teacher at Brown University or a musician, and he gets a scholarship to go to Brown and goes there searching for his father, only to discover that the parent he's missing is not his father, but the other mother.
Mm.
So that's
Oh.
okay. And this is just out. His name is George Floyd, One Man's Life and the Struggle for Racial
Wow.
Justice. There's that beautiful art on the back.
Mhm.
That-
That's who wrote that.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is by Robert Samuels
Oh.
and Toulouse Olorunipa of the Washington Post.
Yeah, I heard about it.
Yeah. Did you hear a good thing?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it feels like it's going to be an important book.
Mhm.
I mean, and it's very kind of nicely, it
Yeah.
looks stark and important.
Yeah, the black and white.
Yeah, of course. And then there are just a few others that I haven't dug into yet, but if you like these authors, these are some new books. Tom Perrotta is very popular. I think I'd sort of call him lad lit, you know, like Nick Hornby. Anyway, have you read Tom Perrotta? Anybody? I bet you did. Did you read Little Children? No? Anyway, Tom Perrotta has a new book with this character, Tracy Flick, is back. Emma Straub. I would say Emma Straub. She owns a bookstore in Brooklyn. Have you read Emma Straub?
Mhm.
I hope she won't hear me say this, but I kind of think she's a beach read.
I didn't know she owned it.
She owns a bookstore. She's the daughter of a writer, Peter Straub, and she owns a book called Books Are Magic, I think it's called. Yeah, Books Are Magic in Brooklyn. No, it opened after I left Brooklyn, but I need to go visit. Lauren Belfer is an author I've worked with, right, Ellen? You know
Right.
Lauren Belfer. Lauren Belfer has a new book. The book we did, she was the One Book, One Jewish Community in Philadelphia one year. That was And After the Fire.
Right.
And she won the Jewish Book Award, National Jewish Book Award for that. This is her new book. It feels more like Gothic fiction to me, and it looks like it too.
Mhm.
So if you like Gothic fiction, this looks worth checking out. Like Gothic fiction with an intellectual bent, because it's about a woman who's like researching the history of the house. And then Lisa Taddeo, who got a lot of attention for her last book, Three Women, which was kind of about women's sex lives, has a novel. And Elizabeth Gilbert says she's a brilliant writer and storyteller, ghost lover. And then those books that you guys can't see, sorry, but they're all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 new books that came out today. But none of them were really grabbing me so much, except for maybe the orange one, Kate. Can you pass it to me? I can show them. This one we think is worth checking out. And Key, who's sitting over there, is going to read it soon and let us know.
What's
Night
it called?
Crawling. It's an Oprah choice. So we trust Oprah. We love Oprah. She's rarely wrong. It's a beautiful cover. Right? And we know you can judge a book by its cover. Oh, and it's published by Knopf. So of course it's going to be good literary fiction. Okay,
Who
we
wrote
recommend
that?
this. What, Lisa?
Who wrote that?
Her name is Layla Motley, Mottley, Night Crawling. Yeah, I think we should read this. She was a 2018 Oakland Youth Poet Laureate. Her work's been featured in the New York Times and Oprah Daily. And this is her first novel.
What's it about?
Oh, you want to know what it's about? It's about a woman and her brother scraping by in an apartment in East Oakland, and how she becomes involved accidentally in night crawling. I don't know, because she says she gets involved with the police. Is that what it means? I don't know. It's about being poor and living in hardship and scrabbling to make your life okay, and
Night crawling.
night crawling, which Key is Googling right now. But
Well,
I don't know,
fishing.
if it's not PG, I might have to end this session before you look it up.
We're all adults.
Yeah,
Are we
it
all
has something
adults?
to do with sex trafficking.
Oh, it has to do with sex trafficking.
Ah,
Okay. All right. Well, I say if Oprah likes it, it's worth a read. All right, so that's all I have for you tonight, because I really want to keep these sessions to half an hour.
Can I suggest one book that I forgot about at the beginning?
Yes, please.
Everybody's into the Queen's Jubilee.
Yes.
And I just read from a 2018 title, The Gown by Jennifer Robson.
Yes.
And it's about the two women. One is a Holocaust refugee and the other from a little town in England who did all the embroidery of the flowers on Princess Elizabeth's wedding gown.
Wow.
And it is charming. And then it has a modern component where one married and moved to the States, and the granddaughter went back to England to find the other one.
Wow.
And what happened there. And it's
So it's
marvelous.
called The Gown.
The Gown, yes,
The
by
Gown
Jennifer
by
Robson.
Robson. It's a historical fiction based on these two seamstresses who embroidered Queen Elizabeth's wedding gown.
oh, that sounds,
So if you would like to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee, that sounds like a good way to do it. I was not invited to any of the parties. All right, guys,
hey,
we are going to come back again 2 weeks from now
good.
with more good books. In the meantime, next week, Geraldine Brooks has a new book coming out called Horse. So keep an eye out for that, because I know you probably read The People of the Book.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining me. Thank you all for being here tonight and for getting lit with Lynn. See you
Thank
soon.
Right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.